Hey guys, it's friendly neighborhood Doc here with another Wednesday haul. And I wanted to start it off with the giant size Batman 159. Again, a size difference between this giant issue, which is just the regular issue of 159, but with this awesome, just huge artwork, artboard sized artwork by Jim Lee with story by Jeff Loeb. So I'm not going to go over these in length. I'll talk about that regular Batman issue when it comes around in the list. This thing is just freakishly huge, and I just wanted to let you guys see that. So that's part 2 of 6 of Hush 2. All right, we'll start off with the other books that I'm going to talk about in another video. We have a facsimile edition of Youngblood, issue number 1, by Rob Liefeld with a story by Joe Casey. And we'll talk about that in greater length in the initial assessment video. Actually, you know what? That one will go in a greatest hits video. The initial assessment book is going to go to Predator versus Spider-Man. And that's the first issue, and it's written by Benjamin Percy with artwork by... I don't know that we're going to get it until the very end. I think these books are a little different. Okay, yeah, we have Benjamin Percy as the writer, Marcelo Ferreira is the artist. So we'll talk about that book on initial assessment. All right, so the first one that I read through that we can talk about is Absolute Wonder Woman, issue 7. So this is the second part of this story by Kelly Thompson and Mattia de Ulis. So this is the Lady or the Tiger, part 2 of 2. We get this amazing artwork by Mattia. It's just, it hits on every level. It's not quite as expansive and detailed as the first issue was of their guest stint on this book, but it still draws the eye with the colors and the level of detail on the artwork that is present. It draws the eye and brings you to look at who Diana is, just like the story does. Who is she? Where did she come from? What built her moral code? Because that's what's important in building up this Amazonian from hell witch, is that you've got to find something that's different about her. And in order to do that, in order to find that and break the curse of who Wonder Woman is in the DCU, then you've got to take this character and you've got to say, okay, this is who she is. And so it's told through the tale of a story of the Lady or the Tiger. And there is a young man who is in love with this princess. And her father finds out, and he puts him into the gladiatorial combat. And in the gladiatorial combat, then the story that's being told is that there are 2 doors. And behind one is a tiger that the man has hardly any chance to defend himself or survive. The second door holds the love of his life. And deepening this story is the fact that it's not the princess. It's someone else that is behind this door. And the princess, like humans are wont to do, has jealousy inside her body and inside her mind and inside her soul. And through this jealousy, then she tells her lover, I will tell you which door to choose so that you may live. But then her jealousy takes over. And never explicitly tells how the story ends, but you can read between the lines and see that she gave up on him because he loved another. And that pride ended up hurting her in the end because she lost the man that she loved more than anything in the world. But Diana Prince learned once from her mother telling her that story as she got older, that I know the way to go. I know the correct door to choose. And so her mother is held captive by Hades. And she is presented with the same thing, where she has to fight this tiger. And then once that battle is finished, then Hades presents, there's 2 doors. You can choose, and if you choose poorly, then you will not ever see your mother ever again. So it's a story about morality. It's a story about building up who you are as a human being, whether it be a man, a woman, whether you're going to be a good person or whether you're not. And that's often one of the hardest lessons to learn. If you go through and you're stealing, a piece of gum because you're hungry, or you're stealing a bag of chips because you're hungry, that's different than stealing it because you're a thief. The act is the same, but the mindset is different. The mindset of the thief says, this is mine and I want it and I will take it for my own. The mindset of the hungry person is survival. So this book has made me think really deeply. I don't know if you've noticed that in this little chat we're having, but this book has made me think about a great many things. So for that, I say that this is my pick of the week. All right, the next book is Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 2. This book confused me. And I think maybe it was meant to do so, because you have the artwork by Pepe Larraz, which is absolutely action-filled. It's more action than... In these 2 issues, we've got more action from Joe Kelly than we got probably in the entirety of the Zeb Wells run. This book is just nonstop. It's almost like nonstop Spider-Man. But you get the reintroduction of the Hobgoblin, or at least the Hobgoblin's feet, and then you get to see who this character is that is really turning Peter's world upside down. And Norman is still there to help him as a fatherly figure. And he says, there's a lot of things coursing through your veins that even I can't figure out what they are. But your particular physiology with being Spider-Man will help you burn through these things more quickly than a regular man. Well, Spidey's still trying to figure out what happened to the Rhino in the first issue. So he goes through here and goes to Ravencroft and starts having hallucinations. And in these hallucinations, he finds who it is that's causing him all this pain and all this suffering. And I showed it there for just a second, but I didn't want to spoil it. So it is a character that we haven't seen in 7 years, just like Joe Kelly said before his run began. But we'll have to see what the revelations of who that character is and what the fallout of that is to continue on with issue 3 and beyond. It was fun. It was energetic, but at the same time, it was so fast-paced somewhat, and it was almost like you were bouncing with Peter from place to place to place to place to place to place to place. And it was a seismic shift every time. It wasn't a simple shift. It was a seismic shift. So we'll just have to wait and see how that book grows on me or does not. And to be honest, I really love Jeff Loeb. I really love Jim Lee. But I'm really having issues with how are they going to finish this story in 6 issues. It may be that Jim can't do 12 issues back-to-back anymore. But how are they going to finish this? Because in this issue, you get really awesome artwork from Jim Lee. You get Leslie Tompkins. You get her trying to save the Joker after his assault by Silence last issue. But it's almost like this book is too slow of a pace to really complete. So I'm wondering, and they haven't announced it, but I'm wondering if Hush 2 is going to be 12 issues, but split 6 and 6. Because Jeff Loeb has a methodical, slow take on Batman. And that usually works. But when you have 6 issues instead of 12, like you did the first time, you've got to pick up the pace a little bit. And it just doesn't look like he has done very much to quicken that pace. He's jumped you straight into the action, if it makes sense, but he hasn't brought the pace of the book itself forward to a place where it's probably going to satisfactorily end with 6 issues. So, something to think about. I'm just wondering if there's going to be parts 7 through 12 of this story somewhere down the line, and they just kind of pushed this out to get people excited about Batman after the Chip Zdarsky run, or if they're going to try to shoehorn what should probably be a 12-issue story into 6. All right, guys, we have Dust to Dust, issue 5 by J.G. Jones and Phil Bram, which continues this story in the Dust Bowl era of the United States. And you still have the sepia tone color, and the artwork is great. Here you see that the sheriff has discovered who has killed the family that was running during the dust storm. He found this family of bodies, but he realized that somebody killed them. They didn't die of natural causes. So, as this story has progressed, you come to find out that the sheriff is a drunkard and that he's got a lot of past behind him, but he's a good man at heart. He's a flawed man, but he is a good man at heart. So, here you see some of the aftermath of the bodies that were caught in the sandstorm. It just wiped them clean. You see the photographer from the big city setting up her photography studio and going through old photos. So you still have a lot of mystery and a lot of story to unravel here. I believe this is 8 issues, and I am absolutely hooked on this. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Dust to Dust, I'm pretty sure that they will do a trade of all 8 issues once this is finished. I don't think they'll split it in 4 and 4. So I would say just wait for another couple of months, and when you get time, and then go through these issues and either pick them up individually, or if you don't, then get all 8 at once. All right, next up you have G.I. Joe, issue number 6. And G.I. Joe, this issue is a perfect issue of G.I. Joe. You get the story by Josh Williamson, you get the art by Tom Riley, and you get a knockdown, drag-out fight through the course of this entire issue with Duke and Cobra Commander. So as you go through this story, you learn that they're kind of the same coin, but either side of that same coin. So you learn that Cobra Commander has got his own motivations, and it's not as silly as the cartoon made it out to be, although I'm not trivializing the original G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, but I will say that it wasn't known for the greatest storytelling in the world, the deepest storytelling in the world. Here, you're going to be able to flesh out in however many issues Josh Williamson and company work on this book. Then you get this ability to go through the story between Cobra Commander and Duke, the leader of G.I. Joe. All right, guys, we're going to kind of go through a lightning round here. But we've got Green Lantern issue 22, which is by Jeremy Adams with art by Zermanico. And you get this story of Hector Hammond, who Hal Jordan has been a thorn in his side, just as Hector Hammond has been a thorn in Green Lantern's side for a long, long time. And in the last issue, you found that the Department of Justice and some of the seedier parts of the government were working with Hector Hammond to try to bring in other villains. But at the end of the issue, what you were allowed to see that not everybody saw that was in the story was that Hector Hammond was actually siphoning psychic energy and just life energy from these people in order to build himself up and make himself stronger. Then you see the saving of the Silver Scarab, Dan Garrett, in this issue. And he is brought back as a superhero. Meanwhile, you have Hal finding the key to hell and trying to go into hell so that he can find who the character is that's been causing all of the trouble. So you've got this really great story that Jeremy Adams has built up, and you get the cosmic aspect of it, and as well as the cosmic aspect, you also get this idea that Hal is just a flawed man, but he's got Carol Ferris by his side, Star Sapphire, so at least he has somebody to love and somebody that supports him, and he's got somebody that, she's a new superheroine, so she's kind of learning the ropes, but she's also getting it relatively quickly. All right, guys, only a few more books to go. We got Minor Arcana, issue 6 by Jeff Lemire, and here we have Teresa, who is trying to figure out what her grandfather's story is with this hotel that was demolished 20 years previous. And she says, I don't remember there being a hotel in this spot, and I would have been 9, almost 10 when this time came, but there's no hotel here that I remember. So, dealing with her mother's hypochondriac tendencies and the fact that she feels like there's nothing left here for her. There's nothing left in this little tiny seedy town. But then she hangs out with her sister and her nephew when they go out to go get ice cream one day. And she comes to realize, you know what? This is my family for better or for worse. I'm going to stick around even though Mom's a pain in my side. I am going to stay here, and I'm going to help her rebuild this business and try to help people in this psychic realm and with their issues that they're dealing with. All right. Power fantasy, I think I'm just reading that for just masochism at this point because the story is so heady and kind of over my head that I'm not really sure what all is going on. But at the same time, I'm really having a good time. It's a really enjoyable story. So I don't really know what to tell you other than it is pure superheroics, but on a humanistic level. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Power Fantasy, it's got this really great art by Casper Wingard, and the story is written by Kieran Gillen. And if you like something that's very trippy, Alan Moore-ish, and just out of this world and out of your mind, this is going to be right up your alley. And the last book this week, guys, is the Universal Monsters The Mummy, issue 2, which is kind of a retelling / it's not really an adaptation. It adds something to it, kind of like the Dracula book that had come out from Image as the first book. It doesn't tell the story of the movie beat by beat by beat. But here you have Faith Erin Hicks, and it shows Helen, and there's something wrong with Helen. Helen's father, this is set back during the 1920s after they have opened tombs in the Valley of the Kings. And at the time that the movie was made, it had only happened about 10 years prior. So there was a lot of story and a lot of history that was unknown about these mummies and these Egyptian kings from back when. So this tells the story of Helen trying to enjoy herself as a young 20-something in the Roaring '20s in Egypt, but at the same time, she's trying to heed the call because Ardeth Bay from the movie has spoken to the scroll here, and it was found within one of the valleys of the kings. And when he spoke the name, then it was as though she recognized him. She knew him. And so here we see them as young characters, and we see them as they are in modern times. So you have Imhotep and Ankh-Enamun. So a really interesting stack this week with a bunch of different things, guys. Like I said, I'll talk about the Youngblood Deluxe book in the Greatest Hits video that I do, and then I'll talk about the Spider-Man versus Predator book in the initial assessment video. So thanks for joining me. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday and that you got to pick up all your books that you wanted, and we will see you guys in the next video. Take care.